Story begins with a kaiju running amok in Yokohama's several wards. The city's emergency kaiju alert system activates, and we see several officials guide citizens to safe locations to escape the kaiju's wrath. Several helicopters arrive and try to get the kaiju's attention by shooting it with weaponry. Through a discussion between locals, we learn the Defense Corps' 3rd Division will exterminate the kaiju. The 3rd Division troops and their leader Mina Ashiro defeat the kaiju. Then, we spot a man, Kafka Hibino, and his allies observing the kaiju's remains from afar. One of Kafka's allies tells him it's time to head to that kaiju's area to clean things up. Eventually, Kafka arrives at the kaiju's location and performs his cleanup duties. While doing so, he informs the audience that cleanup workers don't receive much praise, if not any acknowledgement, unlike the 3rd Division troops. After Kafka gives someone a kaiju sample, he notices someone's lifting a specific kaiju organ off the ground. Kafka tells his ally to stop, but it's too late. The organ bursts and its acidic blood drops on Kafka's ally, causing him pain. Kafka heads to his ally and helps him recover from his flesh wound. He's unsure if he and his allies will finish things within a week. Then, someone informs Kafka that he must tackle intestine duty, and he isn't thrilled about it. Later, we see Kafka lying in bed, unhappy that he had to perform intestine duty that day. Then, the news broadcast on television catches his attention. The newscaster highlights Mina's achievements. While it's doing that, we receive a flashback sequence involving a young Kafka and Mina. In it, Kafka tells Mina that he wants her and him to exterminate all the kaiju. Kafka shuts his television off. Kafka regroups with his co-workers in the morning. They introduce him to Rino Ichikawa, a recruit who wants to join the defense force. Rino confronts Kafka about it, and Kafka shares why he gave up on that dream. Rino says he doesn't plan to give up and departs to the changing room. Their leader assigns them different duties. As for Kafka and Rino, the leader says they must handle the intestine duty. Although Kafka complains to the leader, he leaves to handle the task. The leader feels Kafka would have been great on the defense force if he'd passed its test. Later, Kafka and Rino head to a park to relax. Kafka hands Rino some tools to help him cope with their job's nasty after effects.
Fortunately, Kafka saves Rino from becoming Yoju Chowder. Kafka tells Rino to head home because he doesn't want Rino to perish and not fulfill his dream. He calls out to the Yoju and a thrilling chase occurs between him and the beast. After Kafka jumps through a window, we enter a flashback. In it, we see a young Kafka and Mina. Kafka says a kaiju ruined their homes and their school. Also, he's upset that he didn't complete a video game called Guramon. Mina's baffled by Kafka's Guramon response and tells him she's upset that her calico cat Miko perished. The two vow to exterminate the kaiju and join the defense force. Then we return to the present. Kafka tries fighting the Yoju, but the Yoju overpowers him. Before the beast eats Kafka, Rino arrives and saves Kafka. Rino tells Kafka he called in for the weapon he's using. Kafka wonders why Rino didn't flee home. Rino says a Defense Corps member would never abandon someone in peril. Kafka reflects on his failures and screams. Before the Yoju hurts Rino, a white tiger arrives and attacks the Yoju. Suddenly, several gunshots go off, resulting in the Yoju's demise. Kafka turns to the side and notices Mina nearby with her comrades. Mina orders two allies named Igarashi and Takaragi to look after Kafka and Rino. Meanwhile, she and the others plan to scout the area for more Yoju. Later, we see Kafka reflecting on his encounter with Mina. He and Rino are currently at a hospital. Rino thanks Kafka for saving him and says he looked cool during their scuffle with the Yoju. He insists Kafka apply to the Defense Corps. Kafka thanks Rino for his encouraging words. He plans to submit another application soon. Suddenly, a bug-like kaiju appears before Kafka and enters his mouth. Kafka experiences something strange and Rino checks on him. Rino is startled by Kafka's kaiju-like appearance. Kafka reassures Rino that it's him and not a random kaiju. Suddenly, an old man stumbles upon Rino and Kafka. He plans to call the Defense Corps. Rino tells Kafka they should leave the hospital immediately. Then we enter a flashback involving Mina and Kafka. Kafka explains why it's integral to tackle a kaiju's legs first. Simultaneously, Mina tells Kafka that she's afraid of the thought of fighting a beast that's bigger than her. Kafka promises Mina he'll be by her side whenever she's afraid. Mina exits her bath and someone informs her that a kaiju arrived at the hospital. The episode closes with Mina planning to investigate the incident with her team.